A millionaire abandoned his wife without explanation. 25 years later, he sees her leaving a theater, beautiful, accompanied by a young man. The Manhattan skyline glittered against the autumn sunset as Anna Winters meticulously arranged the crystal glasses on her mahogany dining table. At 40, she possessed the kind of elegance that turned heads at charity galas and social events. Not that she cared much for those anymore. Tonight was about family, about celebrating 20 years of marriage to Elliot Winters, the real estate mogul who'd swept her off her feet at a Columbia University fundraiser 2 decades ago. The aroma of coco vin, Elliot's favorite, wafted from the kitchen of their Upper East Side penthouse. Anna checked her reflection in the hallway mirror, smoothing her auburn hair and adjusting the pearl necklace Elliot had given her on their 10th anniversary. The vintage Cartier timepiece on her wrist showed 7:45 p.m. Elliot was never late. Punctuality was practically his middle name. The first tremors of unease rippled through her when the clock struck 8. She reached for her phone, manicured fingers hovering over Elliot's number. Straight to voicemail, their housekeeper, Rosa, appeared at her elbow with concern etched on her weathered face. "Mrs. Winters, should I keep the food warm?" "Yes, please, I'm sure he's just caught in traffic." The words rang hollow even as she spoke them. In 20 years of marriage, Elliot had never been caught in traffic. By 9, Anna's heels clicked against the marble floors as she paced between the dining room and his study. Their children had already called. Peter from his dorm at Yale, Marina from her freshman orientation at Stanford. Both had wished them a happy anniversary. Where was he? The study door creaked open, the room untouched since morning. Anna's fingers traced the leather-bound books on the shelves, the collection of rare fountain pens. Searching for, she wasn't sure what, until her hand brushed against an envelope propped against his laptop. Her name was written in his precise handwriting. The paper felt heavy, expensive, the same stationery he used for important business correspondence. With trembling fingers, she broke the seal. "My dearest Anna, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. The past 20 years have been a dream, but dreams must end. I've realized that the love we once shared has faded, like autumn leaves drifting away in the wind. Don't try to find me. Don't try to understand. Sometimes even I don't understand why the heart chooses the paths it does. Take care of our children. Tell them whatever you think best. Goodbye, Elliot." The letter fluttered from her grasp, landing silently on the Persian carpet. Anna's knees buckled, and she gripped the edge of his mahogany desk. The room spun as 20 years of memories whirled through her mind like a tornado. Their first date at Le Bernardin, the proposal at the Rainbow Room, Peter's first steps, Marina's piano recitals. She didn't hear Rosa's gasp or feel the housekeeper's arms supporting her. Her fingers fumbled with her phone, dialing their family attorney, Richard Goldman. His response sent ice through her veins. "Anna, I'm so sorry. Elliot came to see me this morning. He's transferred most of the assets to offshore accounts. The joint accounts, they're empty." A primal sound escaped her throat, somewhere between a laugh and a sob. Outside, a siren wailed in the distance, a fitting soundtrack to the demolition of her world. The pearl necklace suddenly felt like it was choking her. She ripped it off, the beads scattering across the floor like tears. The next few hours passed in a blur, Peter's voice on the phone, raw with rage. "I'm coming home right now, Mom. That coward. That absolute coward." Marina's quiet sobs in the background of their video call. Her daughter's perfect makeup streaking down her cheeks. Dawn found Anna still in Elliot's study, surrounded by the detritus of their life together. Family photos smiled mockingly from the walls. Ski trips in Aspen, summers in the Hamptons, Christmas mornings with wrapping paper strewn across this very floor. She picked up a frame, their 20th anniversary party at the plaza just last year. Elliot's arm was around her waist, his smile reaching his eyes. Or had she imagined that too? The first rays of sunlight crept through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the chaos of scattered papers. Bank statements, property deeds, tax returns, all empty promises now. Anna stood on shaky legs, catching her reflection in the window. A different woman stared back at her, older, harder, but somehow still standing. She picked up the phone one last time, not to call Elliot, but to call her children. They needed to hear her voice. Strong and steady, they needed to know that while their father had chosen to end their dream, she would be their rock. Even as her world crumbled around her, Anna Winters straightened her spine and prepared to face the storm ahead. 3 months after Elliot's departure, Anna sat in her empty penthouse. Surrounded by auction catalogs, her trembling fingers traced the photographs of her beloved antiques, pieces that had taken years to collect, each with its own story. The Steinway piano where Marina had practiced Chopin, the Renaissance credenza that had housed their wedding china, the Louis XVI chairs where Peter had learned to read. Mrs. Winters, Jessica Chen, her realtor, cleared her throat softly. The couple from Chicago is waiting downstairs. They're very interested in the penthouse. Anna nodded, her wedding ring catching the light one last time before she slipped it into her pocket. The savings from its sale would barely cover a month's expenses. Standing in her walk-in closet, now half empty after selling most of her designer wardrobe, she reached for the last valuable thing she owned. A jewelry box containing pieces inherited from her grandmother, the bell of Hudson and Crown. An elegant jewelry store in the Diamond District chimed as Anna pushed open the door. Behind the counter, Cecilia Crown looked up from her ledger, her silver hair immaculate, her keen eyes taking in Anna's Chanel suit, one of the few pieces she'd kept. "How can I help you?" Cecilia's voice was warm but professional. Anna placed her grandmother's jewelry box on the counter. "I'd like to know their value." Her voice didn't waver, but her knuckles were white against the leather box as Cecilia examined each piece. Her expression shifted from professional interest to genuine fascination. "This Georgian bracelet. The craftsmanship is extraordinary, and this Art Deco brooch. Few people recognize their value anymore." She looked up at Anna. "You have an eye for quality. My grandmother taught me about jewelry. She was from old Boston money, believed every piece told a story. And what story are these pieces telling now?" Anna met Cecilia's gaze. "Survival." Cecilia hesitated before speaking. "You have potential, Anna. If you're willing to learn and start from the basics, I might have a place for you here." The offer was cautious, but Anna saw it as a lifeline. Over the next year, Anna absorbed everything about the jewelry business. She stayed late studying gemology books, learned design on weekends, and slowly began sketching her own pieces. Her first design, a phoenix pendant in rose gold and rubies, sold to a divorcee who saw herself in the symbolism. Peter, who had taken a leave from Yale to support the family, watched his mother's transformation with pride and worry. "Mom, I can defer another semester. The law firm pays well." "No." Anna's voice was firm as she helped him pack his dorm room. "Your future isn't negotiable. I'm not letting him take that too." Marina struggled differently. During her summer break from Stanford, she'd lock herself in her room for hours. One night, Anna found her daughter sobbing over old family photos. "He hasn't called, not once," Marina whispered. "Did he ever love us?" Anna held her daughter, their tears mingling. "His choices reflect on him, not us. Not. We're going to write our own story now." By the second year, Anna's designs had developed a following. When a Vogue editor wore one of her butterfly bracelets to the Met Gala, orders flooded in. Cecilia watched her protege with growing admiration. One rainy Tuesday, Cecilia called Anna into her office. "I'm retiring," she announced without preamble. "I want you to take over the business." Anna stared at her mentor. "Cecilia, I can't possibly afford." "You'll pay me over time, from the profits. I've already drawn up the papers." Cecilia's eyes twinkled. "Consider it an investment in both our futures." That evening, standing in her modest but cozy Upper West Side apartment, Anna looked at herself in the mirror. Gone was the society wife with perfect highlights and designer labels. In her place stood a businesswoman in simple elegance, her auburn hair now naturally streaked with silver, her eyes holding wisdom instead of tears. Her phone buzzed with messages from her children. Peter, now back at Yale and thriving in law school, sent a photo of his Dean's List certificate. Marina shared a link to her first therapy session booking. She'd decided to become a counselor, turning her pain into purpose. Anna opened her sketchbook, fingers flying across the paper. Her new collection would be called Renaissance. Not just rebirth, but rediscovery. Each piece would tell a story of transformation, a caterpillar's journey to butterfly, a phoenix rising, a closed bud blooming into flower. As she sketched, a memory surfaced of Elliot asking about her grandmother's jewelry all those years ago. "Why keep these old pieces?" he'd said. "I could buy you new ones." He never understood that value wasn't just about price. Some things, like strength and dignity, had to be discovered in the breaking, and sometimes, like the most precious gems, people only revealed their true brilliance under pressure. 25 years after his departure, Elliot Winters stood in his executive suite at the Plaza, staring at the Wall Street Journal's headline, "Winters Corp Acquisition, Tech Giant Eyes Real Estate Empire." At 65, his hair had turned silver, matching the Manhattan skyline outside his window. The merger would be his legacy, the culmination of years spent building an empire that now felt hollow. His phone buzzed with messages from lawyers and board members, but his attention fixed on a jewelry advertisement in the newspaper's lifestyle section. Crown & Winters exclusive collection, where heritage meets modern elegance. The model wore a stunning sapphire necklace. Its design both bold and delicate, something about it struck him. Perhaps the way it captured light like Anna's eyes used to. "Mr. Winters," his assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "The acquisition team is ready for you." Hours later, exhausted from negotiations, Elliot decided to walk back to his hotel. The autumn air carried hints of winter, reminding him of another October evening decades ago. The nightlights of Broadway blurred around him until a familiar figure caught his eye outside the Barrymore Theater. There she was. Anna. Time had been kind to her, grace replacing the youthful beauty he remembered. She wore a tailored black dress that spoke of quiet confidence, her silver-streaked hair elegantly styled. But it was her companion that stopped Elliot's heart. A young man, no more than 20, offering her his arm with obvious affection. The young man's laughter carried across the street. Bright, unrestrained, achingly familiar. He had Peter's smile, Marina's eyes. Anna beamed at him with grandmother's pride. But to Elliot's tortured imagination, it looked like something else entirely. "Sir," a street vendor's voice snapped him from his trance. "You're blocking the sidewalk." Elliot moved mechanically. Following them at a distance, they entered Daniel, the same restaurant where he and Anna had celebrated their 15th anniversary. Through the window, he watched them settle into a corner booth. The young man animatedly describing something while Anna listened with rapt attention, back in his hotel room. Elliot poured himself a scotch with trembling hands. The merger documents lay forgotten on his desk as he opened his laptop, searching for any information about Anna's life now. The hits came quickly. Crown & Winters Jewelry opens London boutique. Anna Winters named among top women entrepreneurs. Innovative jewelry designer reshapes industry standards. The scotch burned his throat as he clicked through photos. Anna at gallery openings. Charity events, design awards in each image. She radiated a confidence he'd never seen during their marriage. She'd built something remarkable from the ashes of their life together. But it was a casual family photo in a society column that shattered him. Peter Winters Jr., rising star attorney. Celebrates son Lucas's 20th birthday with mother Anna Winters and sister Dr. Marina Winters. The young man from the theater smiled back at him. Not Anna's lover, but his own grandson. Elliot sat in the darkness of his hotel room. The city lights painting shadows on his face, he remembered his brief affair with Rebecca. His former secretary. 6 months of passion that fizzled into regret. The years in London, Paris, Dubai, building towers of steel and glass while his real legacy grew up without him. His phone lit up with another message about the merger. 25 years of running of building walls higher than his skyscrapers. And for what? His grandson had his smile and he'd learned about it through a Google search. The scotch glass shattered in his grip, drops of blood mixing with spilled alcohol. In the bathroom, washing his cut hand, Elliot faced his reflection. A successful man by every measure except the ones that mattered. The morning sun bathed Crown & Winters' flagship store in golden light as Elliot stood across Fifth Avenue. Gathering courage, through the window, he watched Anna instructing a young apprentice, her hands moving gracefully over a display case a lifetime ago. Those same hands had straightened his tie every morning. His research had revealed more than just Anna's professional success. Peter had become a partner at Goldman & Myers, specializing in corporate law. Marina held a PhD in psychology from Stanford, running a successful practice in Manhattan. And Lucas, his grandson, was studying jewelry design at Parsons, following in his grandmother's footsteps. The boutique's door chimed as he entered. Anna's voice carried from the back room. "I'll be right with you." The space exuded elegance, displays of stunning jewelry pieces, each telling its own story. He recognized her artistic touch in every design. "Welcome to Crown and Win." Anna froze mid-sentence. Her professional smile faltering. 25 years collapsed into a heartbeat. "Hello, Anna." His voice cracked on her name. Before either could speak further, a commanding voice cut through the tension. "Get out." Peter stood in the doorway of the private showroom, his tall frame radiating fury. Like looking in a mirror from 30 years ago, Elliot thought. Except his son's eyes held nothing but contempt. "Peter, Save it," Peter advanced, his expensive suit a armor of success. "Did you know I got married 10 years ago? Of course not. Did you know Marina had a breakdown in college? No. How about Lucas's birth? Were you there when Mom worked 18-hour days to put us through school?" Each question landed like a physical blow. The young apprentice quietly retreated, leaving the three of them in a tableau of unspoken pain. "I saw Lucas with Anna at the theater," Elliot managed. "He has your smile. Don't you dare." Peter's voice shook. "You lost the right to comment on our smiles when you walked away. Lucas doesn't even know your name. To him, you're just a cautionary tale about men who abandon their families." Anna's quiet voice cut through the tension. "Peter, please check on the Astor Commission upstairs." When he hesitated, she added softly, "I need a moment with your father." After Peter left, the silence stretched between them like a chasm. Anna moved behind the counter, her fingers tracing a display of engagement rings, bitter irony not lost on either of them. "Why now, Elliot?" No anger in her voice, just weariness. After all these years, he pulled out his phone, showing her the family photo he'd found. "I saw our grandson and didn't even know him. I watched him laugh with you outside the theater and felt jealous, thinking..." He stopped, shame coloring his words. "Thinking I'd found happiness with someone else." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "I did find happiness, Elliot, not with another man, but with myself, with our children, with creating beauty from pain." She reached under the counter and retrieved a small velvet box. Inside lay a man's ring, platinum with subtle sapphire accents. Lucas designed this for his first major project. He said it represented absent love, beautiful but hollow. Elliot's hands trembled as he looked at his grandson's creation. "I had a brief affair," he confessed suddenly, "with Rebecca, my secretary. It lasted 6 months. When it ended, I was too ashamed to come back. Then months became years, and the shame grew until it was all I had left. We wondered, you know. The children had so many theories. Marina thought you'd started another family. Peter was convinced you'd had a mental breakdown. The truth is almost disappointingly ordinary." A commotion upstairs signaled Peter's return. Anna quickly closed the ring box. "Peter and Marina are having dinner at my place tonight. Lucas will be there too." She paused, studying his face. "He should meet his grandfather properly. Don't you think?" Tears spilled down Elliot's cheeks. "After everything, you'd allow that." "I'm not doing it for you," Anna said firmly. "I'm doing it for Lucas, for Marina, who still checks her phone for messages from you, for Peter, who needs to stop carrying this anger, and yes, maybe a little for me too. Maybe 25 years is a long time to hold on to pain." Anna's Upper West Side townhouse buzzed with nervous energy as she prepared for dinner. The aroma of rosemary roasted chicken filled the air, a recipe she'd perfected during those first lonely years when cooking became her midnight therapy. Marina arrived first, her therapist's composure cracking the moment she stepped inside. "Mom, are you sure about this?" Her hands fidgeted with her pearl earrings. A 21st birthday gift from Anna. Sweetheart, at some point, we need to face our ghosts. Anna squeezed her daughter's hand, even if just to let them go. The doorbell rang again. Peter stood there with his wife Sarah, a corporate attorney whose quiet strength had helped heal some of his old wounds. Behind them, Lucas bounded in with the energy of youth, his portfolio tube slung over his shoulder. "Grandma, wait till you see my new designs." His enthusiasm faltered when he noticed the extra place setting. "Are we expecting someone else?" The silence that followed was deafening. Peter's jaw clenched, Sarah instinctively reached for his hand, and Marina sank deeper into the sofa. Anna took a deep breath, but before she could speak, the final doorbell chime echoed through the house. Elliot stood in the doorway, clutching a bottle of Bordeaux, the same vintage they'd shared on their honeymoon in France. His eyes swept the room, taking in the life he'd abandoned, family photos chronicling birthdays, graduations, holidays he'd missed, a portrait of Lucas as a baby, cradled in Anna's arms, Marina's doctoral graduation photo, Peter's law firm partnership announcement. Lucas hesitated, his gaze flickering between his grandmother and Elliot. "You're my grandfather," he said finally, his tone more questioning than certain. "Why didn't you come back before now?" Elliot's voice trembled. "Yes, I am." "Your designs?" Lucas pulled a sketch from his portfolio. "The Winters Tower in Chicago. I studied it in my architecture elective, the way you used light and shadow. It inspired my latest piece." The young man spread his drawings across the coffee table, a pendant design that merged architectural elements with organic forms. Elliot moved closer, professional instinct temporarily overriding emotional paralysis. "The angular lines here," he pointed. "They create a fascinating interplay with the curved elements." Marina watched the exchange, years of professional training warring with personal pain. "I spent years analyzing father abandonment in my patients," she said quietly. "Never quite managed to analyze my own case." Elliot turned to his daughter, seeing for the first time how her delicate features masked a core of steel. "I've read your published papers on trauma recovery. You've helped so many people, Marina. Despite me." "Because of you," she corrected, her voice gaining strength. "Every patient who sits in my office carrying the weight of abandonment, I understand them, really understand them." Peter remained by the window, his back turned to the room. Sarah whispered something in his ear, and his shoulders sagged slightly. "The night you left," Peter finally spoke, "I swore I'd never be like you. Every career decision, every relationship choice, even how I parent Lucas, all defined by not being Elliot Winters." Anna moved to the kitchen, returning with a decanter of wine. "Let's sit down," she suggested. "The food's getting cold." The dining room held more memories than any museum. They settled into their seats, the weight of 2.5 decades hanging over them like a storm cloud. Lucas, innocent of the old wounds, bridged the silence with stories from design school. Halfway through dinner, Marina suddenly stood up, her voice tight with restrained emotion. "Do you know how many years I wondered if you were even alive?" Her confession came haltingly, each word a weight lifted. "I checked obituaries every week, I thought you'd died." Elliot's hand shook as he reached for his water glass. He wrote dozens of letters over the years, each one a failed attempt at reconciliation, now buried in a drawer like a relic of his regret. "Do you still have them?" Lucas asked, his designer's curiosity piqued by this archive of unspoken words. "Everyone, they're in a safe at my hotel." Peter's lawyer mind caught the detail. "Hotel? The merger announcement. You're selling Winters Corp." "Yes." Elliot met his son's gaze. "I built an empire of empty buildings. It's time to stop hiding in their shadows." Anna watched the interplay of emotions across the faces she loved most in the world. Healing had begun, fragile and tentative like the first light of dawn after a long storm. As Anna cleared the table, she glanced at her family, fractured, mending, and finally together. For the first time in decades, the future felt possible. She rose and walked to her studio adjacent to the dining room. "I want to show you something," she called back. Returning, she carried a large jewelry box. Lucas isn't the only one who designed something recently. Inside lay a stunning necklace, a complex interplay of gold strands and precious stones. I call it reconciliation. Each strand represents a path. Some broken, some whole, some parallel, never touching. Others intertwining in unexpected ways. The artistry stunned them into silence. Lucas studied the technical mastery. Marina recognized the emotional symbolism. Peter saw the strength in its complexity. And Elliot saw 25 years of love. Pain, growth, and possibility captured in precious metal and stone. As the evening wound down, Lucas shocked everyone by hugging his grandfather. "Come see my graduation show next month." The boy's uninhibited hope cracked something open in the room. Marina managed a watery smile. "I have a spare couch in my office. Professional or personal visits welcome?" Peter simply nodded, the smallest gesture carrying the weight of possibility. Standing in the doorway, watching his family leave, Elliot turned to Anna. "Thank you, not for forgiving me, but for raising them to be better than I was. They're your children too. Elliot, it's never too late to learn from them." After everyone left, Anna stood in her studio, adding the final touches to her reconciliation piece. Outside, Manhattan's lights sparkled like the diamonds in her design. Each one a story, a wound, a hope, a healing. Like, subscribe, and share to follow more emotional stories like this one. Your support helps this channel grow.